Michael Boyle's StrengthCoach.com presents the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. PerformBetter.com.
All right, hey everybody, welcome to episode 379 of the Strength Coach Podcast, brought to you by Perform Better, the experts in functional training and rehabilitation. I'm your host, Anthony Arena. The show notes are located at StrengthCoachPodcast.com. All right, today on the StrengthCoach.com and NBSC.TV Coach's Corner, spoke with Coach Boyle about loaded change of direction drills, something he got from a young female coach. That looked pretty cool. Why pushing knees over toes is a bad idea for knee pain. Belief clusters. And his problem with young PTs that only look at data, so they only believe that if the data doesn't prove something, then they don't want to look at it. So, you know how Coach Boyle feels about that. So we kind of touched on that a little bit. And then we talked about some ideas about maintaining muscle as we age. All right, for the Naamly Maximizing the Member Experience with Sumit Seth, founder of Naamly. Sumit's going to talk about core values. Not just core values, but how to put them into play to advance your member experience. All right, I've been talking about the Perform Better Functional Training Summits. They're coming. Orlando is already a month away, May 30th to June 1st. Today I have on Chris Poirier. He's going to tell us all about a little bit how he's changed up the format, how he's gotten rid of Sundays, how he's doing something on Thursdays now, and an added bonus, kind of a networking Q&A room. So we're going to talk all about it with Chris. Guys, if you need to check out all the summits, you can go to PerformBetter.com. Lots of things to get to, so let's get on the phone with Chris Poirier. All right, guys, so what I wanted to do for this section, you hear me talk about the summits and Perform Better all the time. And this year, the summits have a little bit of a new look. So I wanted to get Chris Poirier on just to talk a little bit about it, go over what's happening. So Chris, first of all, thanks for doing this.
Oh, Anthony, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Well, so this year, now we still have the four great locations: Orlando, Providence, Chicago. This year, a little change: Long Beach to LA. Close enough. But we have some new lectures, different hands-on topics. There's a whole new kind of Q&A network presenter session. We're going to talk all about it with each presenter that you can get to. And there's some changes in the schedule. So, Chris, first let's talk about, you have you brought back the kickoff session on Thursday. Tell us a little bit about that.
So what we did, Anthony, is we've done a poll of about Sundays, and one of the things that we saw is about 60% of the people, 60 to 70% of the people don't come back on Sunday. So I think by Saturday night, everyone had a long weekend. It was a long couple days. So what we decided to do was, instead of coming back for Sunday for those 3 hours, we decided to cut it on Saturday, cut it at Saturday night at 5:30. However, what we did is so we could go back and still get the same amount of CEUs for everyone, we decided to do a kickoff session on Thursday afternoon. So that's usually when a lot of people are starting to come in. They're starting to come into town and check into the hotel. So we decided to do a kickoff session on Thursday afternoon from 3 to 5:30. And who better to do a kickoff session with the founders of FMS, Lee Burton and Gray Cook.
Very cool. And just to remind everybody, this is all part of the package. This is not a separate kickoff session. Is part of the whole summit. You're not paying any extra for it. So I just want to make clear, because in the past there have been certain things where you would pay for it, the day before.
Yeah. Cool. That is correct, and it's not to be confused with a pre-con or something where they do charge more. This is a kickoff session, so this is really the start of the summit. Starts on Thursday afternoon at 3 o'clock. Also, for those who are coming in a little bit early.
Yeah, and Gray and Lee together, it hasn't really been something we've been able to see the last bunch of years. When they present together. So if you can get Gray out of the woods, you're able to see him. But yeah, so each one is going to be Gray and Lee. It's for a couple hours. So, and they're also, always willing to talk all about it that night if you see him out in a bar. So,
That's true. That
or
is true.
but we have a new thing this year, Chris. So you won't have to go to a bar for that. Talk to us about these networking Q&A roundtable sessions that you've added to the summit.
Anthony, we decided to put these in this year, and it's not the typical Q&A section where everyone comes into a room and it usually what happens is the same question gets regurgitated like five different ways to someone to say it different. It doesn't, it's we've always thought the Q&A could go either way. It could be a good Q&A, or it could be if it's the same question getting asked over and over again. We it is a tendency for it to go south pretty quickly. So, but what we really wanted to do is we really wanted to tell the people what's the difference between our events and seeing something on Zoom or a webinar or something. And that is the people being live, being able to interact with everyone, not just the attendees, which I've been, I always say that's, interacting with the attendees is probably the key to the summits. I mean, you were attending them long before you spoke at them.
Yeah,
You know how many people you met at them and how many people you're still
absolutely.
friendly with today because you met them at the
Absolutely.
summits and business acquaintance or whatnot. But we still believe that that's the really powerful part about the summits is the meeting and greeting people. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to encourage that even more this year by having what we're calling a Q&A room. There's not everyone, all the presenters are going to be in there at one time. It's actually every 90 minutes. There's a new 2 or 3 people in that room. So what it's going to be is it's going to be a small room, and there'll be these round tables of about 10 chairs or whatever. And what we'll do is the presenter will put their name on the center of the table. And when the presenter comes, it's their time to be in that room. They'll go to the room and they'll go to a round table and they'll sit at the round table. We encourage anyone, obviously other sessions are going on, but if you really want to spend time with the presenter and you really want to ask them questions, on their business, on their topic, on what they just talk about, but just chat with them, just get to know them. I mean, all the presenters are great people, they
Yeah,
want to just go in there and just find out a little bit more about what they're doing. It's a great time to do that in a comfortable way because you're going to be sitting next to them. You're not raising your hand to ask a question. You're just free flowing talking. You're having a conversation. And other people
absolutely.
can join the conversation at the table as well. So it's a little bit different. It's to encourage network. It's encouraging people to talk to the presenters, to communicate actually into encouraging them to talk amongst themselves as well. So I'm
Yeah,
sure there's going to be different people answering questions at that table as well. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, how busy the room is. But, we really feel that our true power of the summits are not only having great presenters there, but it's the interaction, it's the networking that the attendees are going to get with the presenters and other attendees too. So we're trying to encourage that.
absolutely. I will say, I mean, especially with the kickoff session, like, guys, get to the kickoff session that evening. I guarantee you in the hotel area, there's always because presenters from Friday, they're going to come in for Thursday. They're going to be looking to have something to eat, maybe have a beer. And so they'll be around. They're always, always, always around. So there's Thursday, then there's Friday. Now, so what Chris is saying is normally there was 2 lectures and 2 hands-on sessions. Now there's 2 lectures, 2 hands-on, and this great little networking roundtable Q&A room that you can spend time with. At the most, Chris, if I remember looking at the schedule, it's only 3. There might be 3 presenters in there, so there'll be 3 tables. Each one will have a presenter. At the most, it'll only be 3, so you can go in there and pick
Correct.
what time you want to do that. Great, good stuff.
Correct. And if there's a presenter you want to spend a little bit more time with, that's the perfect type. And you don't want to chase them around the convention center. You don't want to, follow them with everybody else. You just wait for them to be in that room and you go in there and you can ask them whatever you want.
Yeah, and I will say too, guys, if you're listening to this, there's one reason why you're listening. It's because of the summit. Because I used to go to the summits, and I got to know Coach Boyle and Chris and so many of the people that are on the tour. And from the what's my favorite part of the summit, not those boring lectures, but
Yeah.
the social, Chris,
Oh,
on Friday night. You're not getting rid of that, right?
Anthony, you were like, when I was just talking about that, I didn't realize that. That's right. The biggest part of networking, and obviously you met Mike. You're you're running Strength Coach Podcast right now. I mean, this is like to for people who don't believe in networking. I can guarantee you that every single presenter and every single attendee that has been successful has gotten somewhere because of a form of networking. We're just saying, hey, we're bringing people all together in one spot. It's a great opportunity to network with like-minded people, make relationships, business relationships, rely on people that you can throw questions at. I mean, that's been, I get emails to this day, still today from doing these for 25 years that people are saying, hey, thanks for putting on these. I met this person there where, we're good buddies. We're business partners now. And like, it's just so much that have come from them.
Yeah, the opportunity, like I said, it's Thursday night, casually. It's at this fifth session all day that you can now, because sometimes you also need a break. You need a break from that all just going to lectures or going to hands-on. You need a little bit of a mental break. I think this room provides a little bit of relief to be like, I can still do something, but I can go a little deeper with this person. We have the networking, the social on Friday night with my man Kevin Hirchin playing guitar, which is always awesome. And then we're going to repeat it all on Saturday, and then there's no Sunday, so it's kind of a nice, quick in and out. And it's a really important part of, I can't stress enough, going somewhere in person and talking to people. And even if you don't network with presenters, meet somebody next to you in those rooms. It's really important to meet with your colleagues and your peers, not just the presenters.
Yeah, no, good point. Good point. Well said.
All right, Chris. So a reminder for everybody, the first one is coming up. It's in Orlando. It is May 30th, Thursday, May 30th to June 1st.
Yeah, no, we got a great kickoff down in Orlando this year. First weekend in June actually starts May 30th. Or actually, May 30th, Thursday afternoon. We obviously have some great presenters. We got some new presenters presenting there. We got a combination of a lot of different people. We got a great nutritionist, Joey Antonio, who Joey used to be on our one days years ago and spoke at our summits when we first started. Great mind, great knowledge of nutrition. We have a couple key business people that are down there. Obviously, we got, up and coming Travis Bonds. We got a new business guy, Billy Holfucker. We got a lot of really, really great coaches that are going to be there. Eric Cressy, Coach Boyle. Coach Boyle hasn't been to Orlando in like 5 years, so this is going to be a great having him back on doing the Orlando Summit. It's going to be a good one. We got some of the favorites, some of the Don Saladinos, the Alan Cosgrove, Martin Rooney, Rachel Cosgrove, Sue Falsone, Todd Durkin. Just got a great group that's happening down in Orlando with some great presentations, and I was really happy to see a lot of the presenters really thought about their topics this year and really put some interest into it. They bounced a lot of questions off of me and what was popular, what they should do, and they really did a really nice job of coming up with their presentation. So we got a lot of exciting presentations coming up, and I missed a ton of people, obviously, to say there's going to be a lot more people down there. We have 30 presenters that will be presenting in Orlando over the course of 2.5 days.
Very cool. I got to mention my good friends, Sherilyn Coopersmith and Frank Dolan, Charlie Weingroff, Rocky Schneider, Will Fleming, Kevin Carr, Brian Nguyen, Todd Durkin. I mean, the lineup's incredible.
Will Fleming, Allie Gilbert, who we missing? Lance Walker, Rich Ohm,
Dan Kleckner, Michelle Boland, Corey Taylor.
Corey.
Good lineup. All right, cool. Chris.
Brian Wynn. Can't forget Brian Wynn.
Who can forget Brian Wynn?
Who can forget Brian? I'm sure he'll have a couple people crying in his session, but
there you go, guys. Yeah, and if you don't get an opportunity, get into Brian's networking room. You'll really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Chris, thank you so much for doing this. Looking forward to a great year of the summits. Really appreciate you coming on, giving us an overview.
Thanks, Anthony. Looking forward to kicking them off.
All right, guys. Now it's time for the shrinkcoach.com and NBSC.TV Coaches Corner with Coach Boyle. You can try shrinkcoach.com for 7 days for free. Guys, same great forum, lots of great conversations going on there. You know, we talk a lot about forum topics on the podcast. So you can go to shrinkcoach.com for 7 days for free. You can also get 7 days for free at NBSC.TV. It's basically you're a fly on the wall at NBSC. You get staff meetings, programs, seminars, and in-services from top coaches. So go to NBSC.TV, get your 7-day free trial. Coach, how you doing?
I am doing great. Just for the record, we don't squat any of those flies on the wall, so that's good.
There you go. Coach, you reposted a video. I thought it was pretty, I liked it. It was Ariana Luther. She was doing loaded change of direction. Looks like she had a relatively light, but can't tell. I thought it was one of the smaller Dynamax.
I figured it was probably in the 6-8 pound range if you look
Yeah.
at it. I
Okay.
didn't know.
Yeah, and I was wondering about that with you. Like, I liked what she was doing with it. And then there was a little discussion on your Twitter feed about, it doesn't look like she's rotating. It looks like she's.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, I know.
You're winding me up here, Anthony.
Yeah,
Come on.
So no, but I liked what she was doing with it. She's creating some anti-rotation loads, right? But how would you feel like, just so everybody knows, she was doing some bounds with a med ball, and as she was bounding, she was creating a little bit of rotation, almost like stopping it, and it looked pretty good. The way she could move really well, if that was hard.
She's a great mover. She's an ex-gymnast. She moves unbelievably well, but
Okay.
it was interesting. So one, it makes me aware that people really don't understand anti-rotation and the idea of rotational loads that you are working against, because people say it doesn't look like she's rotating, and it's like she's not. She's going side to side. She's moving the ball side to side, so the ball is producing rotational force. She has to produce the anti-rotation force, and I like that. And obviously, I think, again, people who listen to this thing probably are like, that Mike's a broken record. He always talking about the same things, but obviously, I've gotten even more into the ACL prevention thing since Mark tore his ACL. And when you start thinking what your issue so often in ACL tears is that rotational load. It's you're trying to take a decelerative step at 45 degrees. Your upper body is rotating. So I think when we can start to look at what we would consider a plyo, a lateral bound, or in her case, what we would call a 45-degree bound. So our 45-degree lateral bound, which again is probably a little redundant. But when you add that, and it go back right to the Gary Gray, Todd Wright kind of thing, you add a rotary driver, which is what that ball is. And then you get anti-rotation core work, you get anti-rotation hip work, you're trying to control transverse plane. There's just so much good stuff in there. And as usual, it's just funny because you look, or you don't look, you read people's comments and you think, my God, people really don't understand sometimes, which I guess can be a little bit frustrating, because sometimes you look and think, wow, I always say, we think we're making progress, and then you read some of the comments and you're thinking, not so much.
I got to be honest too. I mean, you always talk about the shit test, right? I mean, you watch that and it looks like there's something good going on, right? I'm just like a general feeling of that looks really good. I need to explore. Like, that's what I felt like. I said,
but,
I really like what she's doing.
Unfortunately, she's also, that's why I always say, like, don't copy track people. She's such a good mover.
Yeah.
That she makes everything look good anyway. So sometimes you have to be a little more analytical, because she's a good enough athlete that everything that she does, you think, oh, that's a great exercise. But in this particular case, I look at it and think, yeah, it really is a great exercise.
Yeah, cool. Coach, staying on this, you talked about things that we repeat, or and you talked about, Marky's ACL rehab. You had a tweet recently. Again, we've talked about knees over toes guy, but you said, I think pushing knees over toes is a bad idea. It happens naturally, but doesn't need to be exaggerated. For most people with knee pain, that's a key phrase there, everybody. For most people with knee pain, knees over ankles, vertical tibia is probably a better idea. For knee pain, I'm a knees over ankles guy. Just wanted you, and I like what Andrew Dixon said. He goes, it's case specific. You work slowly, achieving full range of motion, then you can add weight. It's the same literally with every movement. You wrote some ankle motion is natural. Knees over toes has very little to do with knees and lots to do with ankles. So my question would be, for a lot of people out there, we don't see you talk about, you are the joint by joint guy, and we don't hear a lot about ankle mobility. For example, you'll say elevate the heels in the squat, or you'll talk about vertical tibia. So talk to us about what you might be doing also to work on maybe some of that ankle mobility, so knees over toes wouldn't be a big deal.
One, we always are doing a little bit of ankle mob stuff in our warm up. I would say almost every time we warm up, there'll be some simple ankle rubs. But one of the things you realize is that mobility, you can do a lot of mobility and get a little bit of benefit. And for some people, if you've got stiff whatever, stiff hips, stiff ankles, whatever, stiff joint, stiff T-spine, I think we used to believe that sort of miraculously, I'm just going to do these mobility drills and suddenly I'm going to be Gumby. And that's just not true. So you do have to compensate. My thing more with this was just what ends up happening. I was a little bit aggravated because there was some stuff lately where it was Stuart McGill and knees over toes guy, and people were comparing and contrasting. And I just thought, one guy is a 40-year veteran of the kind of, academic research, speaking, all this stuff. And the other guy is a great internet marketer. And you look and think, these guys don't have anything in common. And the whole knees over toes thing is wrong. People get case specific, blah, blah, blah. People can say whatever they want. Most people shouldn't be there. The vast majority of people shouldn't be trying to do that. And all of this anecdotal, it made my knees better. I think the good thing, and it's probably like the American political system, 50% of the people who try that are going to get better. 50% people who try it are going to 50% try it are going to get worse. The problem is if you just highlight the 50% that got better, it's really easy for people to think that it's 100% and that everybody gets better doing this. And my experience has been the opposite. If someone has knee pain, they're going to do better with vertical tibia. The exception might be that knees over toes demographic. Young guy in the weight room who's doing too much. That guy might do better because he might start doing some backward sled, and he might start doing some more kind of prehabby stuff that's going to help that. And he might just stop the stupid kind of voluminous training program that was making their knees hurt to begin with. But it's not our audience, one. And two, I'm always trying to make people think. I'm always trying to, if I believe there is another side, and if I believe that we/I am on the other side, I like to make sure that I air that out, because I don't want to give people I guess I don't want to give people the wrong impression, or the impression that some of these things are good or are beneficial. And I hate all the wishy-washy. Oh, it's case by case. Oh, maybe, everybody's different. That's all bullshit. Okay. In my mind, I'm sorry. There are going to be rules that apply to the vast majority. Yes, there are going to be exceptions to every rule. Yes, there's going to be a bell curve. There's going to be people on either end. But the majority of what's good in training is good for everybody. The majority of what's bad in training is bad for everybody. And I really, it's so easy to go with it depends and everybody's different and it's case by case. But I don't think you can have any sort of program if that's what you believe, because you're looking at this and saying, every person is this sort of unique snowflake that's coming into my gym. And I look at that and think, actually, most of them are just cookie cutter. Most of them have all been stamped out of the same thing. And they're going to do really well if we give them this sort of generic, the boy's regular haircut. Everybody's going to do great with the same look. And that's way more the reality of training than the unique snowflake thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. I mean, I agree. I think, obviously seeing a lot of people, so much of what we see, like it's kind of, I can never do that with my people, so A lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I cannot do with people, and I think a lot of these guys on the internet will act like anybody can do it. It doesn't matter what the age, and that just
but it goes back to the whole joint by joint thing, right? If you look, the reason we kind of came up with the joint by joint idea or adopted it or publicized it was because, hey, if you show me 100 people, I'm going to bet that 90 of them need hip mobility, T-spine mobility, ankle mobility, right? 9 out of 10 are going to need that. I'm going to bet that 9 out of 10 need some rotational core stability and some linear core stability. I'm going to bet that 9 out of 10 need some strength in their lower body. I just think that the reality is generic programming is probably really good programming if you're doing the right things.
But you're going to still, when you have your groups, you have to coach. You have to look at, okay,
Oh, yeah.
this guy's fine. So I think that's part of it, why I wanted to talk a little bit more about this, because I feel like some of those things, like you talked about, so I repeated your phrase, for most people with knee pain. You kind of had to keep reiterating that in the thread,
Because,
right? Like,
right. Everybody comes back. Well, it works for me. Okay, you're not most people. I didn't say there are 0 outliers. I didn't say this never works. I didn't, and that's what I mean. And I'm trying to be more careful, because that one of my frequent internet accusations is that I speak in absolutes. You speak in absolutes. You say this applies to everybody. So I'm trying to use words like most and many.
not to mention the podcast, but honestly, that's a lot of what you do on here, is we kind of expand on. You don't really talk in absolutes if they listen to you, right? Or if they go on strengthcoach.com, or if they're on mbsc.tv, they would see that from that perspective. There's 3 areas where you really kind of expand on these things. And I think, it's kind of hard to get those things over on Twitter too. So,
Right. And that's people love to try to play gotcha on
yeah,
social media
that's a
with
good point.
a generalization in terms of, oh, but you used the wrong word. You
Yeah.
used and it should have been but. And it's kind of like, yeah, you're right. And Twitter, that's what I love Twitter, but Twitter sucks because of the no edit button. It would be really easy. I did do that in one tweet, and I went back and I said, okay, I was wrong. And I deleted the tweet, and then I rewrote it, because
Yeah.
I said it's easier to just, okay, I'll just delete it and rewrite it, correct it. And I literally put on it, corrected tweet.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, you wrote a little quote by Dina Nayari, Who Gets Believed, and she talked about belief clusters. I believe my senses. I see it. If I see it, I believe it. I believe my instinct, my gut tells me, and I believe the experts, or I believe the data. And you've said too many people are data only. You're really not too many people. You said mostly PTs. Can you talk about
I
where
say
you
that,
feel like
Anthony? I can't believe I said. Did I say?
where
Did I say something unkind about young physical therapists?
young? Oh, wait, now it's young
Young,
physical
yes,
therapist.
primarily
Okay.
young physical
Yeah.
therapists.
Yeah.
But
Could you just give an
uh,
example on that?
it was, and it's funny, that was a podcast. She wrote a book. I think the book was actually, she's about her process of emigrating to the United States, and she went to Harvard and all. And so it had nothing to do with strength and conditioning,
Yeah.
but I wrote it all down because I thought this is really, really good. Because I actually talked about it in my Start With Why talk at the MBSC seminar. I included that. I added it in because I said, it's like the foam roller, right? What do you believe with the foam roller? You
Me-
believe what you feel, right? You believe your senses.
Sure.
I
Sure.
feel better. Like I roll, I feel better. That's really good, solid evidence. And then, we always think about your gut. People always say, "Oh, follow your gut." What does your gut tell you? And then we talk about kind of the gut brain connection, and people think, "Oh, there's way more stuff going on there than we think." But there is that kind of whatever instinct, spidey sense when you meet somebody and you think, "Oh, I don't know, maybe I don't like this person," right? And then the experts, and I brought that up because of the McGill thing. All of a sudden, people are talking about McGill like he's this doddering old fool, and you think this guy was like the game changer in the low back world in the last 2 decades. And if you don't think so, again, if you're one of these young PTs who thinks they know more, then it just shows how little you actually know, because you haven't really done your homework and you haven't looked and said, wait a second, this guy really changed the way we looked at low back pain. And then obviously I would say the physical therapy crowd now is very data driven. Well, do you have a study for that? I get that all the time. Well, do you have a study for that? And I think, I look at it and think I probably go way more on the first three myself. I go by, okay, what are my senses telling me? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? What am I hearing from my athletes? Those are my senses. And then I'm going on my gut. What do I think based on my, I guess, in some day, some senses, my experience. And then I look at it and think same way. Expertise, right? I value expertise. I am going to look to people who've been doing it for a long time, like McGill, and have been successful. So I'm going to look really closely at the experts, but I'm not going to ignore the research. I'm simply not going to be easily swayed by it. There needs to be more than one study, and the study probably needs to have more than 10 subjects, because I think people so badly want to believe. And I think that's the problem with research, is that I think people doing research a lot of times have inherent bias when they're doing the research, and that's a problem.
No, I was saying the Alex Natera stuff. That's the one thing that you will be like, well, Alex's research, but is there a lot of research like that?
Alex is also an expert, and his research is very field related. And my instinct tells me that what he's saying is true. So if we go back through that belief cluster, he kind of checks all the boxes for me. Because I see the bilateral deficit all the time. I see it with our athletes that they can handle more weight on one leg than they do. I just instinctively, I know there's something good going on. Alex is an experienced guy who's got some expertise, and now he's backing it up with really simple research that's pretty hard to disagree with. And I think that's what I like about Alex's stuff, is that you look at it and think he's running a pretty simple study, and he doesn't seem, at least in my mind, he doesn't seem to have an inherent bias. I don't look at him and think, oh, he's a big unilateral guy. He's trying to prove Mike Boyle right. I don't see that at all. He's an Aussie rules football, rugby. So if anything, he probably has a little bit of bilateral slant to him based on his, let's say, his upbringing as a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah. And I think the McGill thing, let's go to that really quick, because McGill, I think people forget McGill is been doing this for a long time. He's written a lot of books, yes. And but he's been around in this world. I mean, he's tested and worked with top MMA guys or a lot of top athletes. A lot of people don't realize he wrote the book with the power lifter and, Brian Carroll, and he helped him rehab. It's not like he's not out there working with some experience as well. And I think what happened with McGill partially lately was he was on the Peter Attia podcast, and he said something like, if you're over 50, you shouldn't go for your PR deadlift. And it set the whole internet on fire.
He basically said you shouldn't squat or deadlift. That's what he said. And my problem with the Attia podcast, I listened and I agreed with him. I thought he's right. We don't do that. We don't squat and deadlift our over 30 clients, really, in terms of conventional barbell back squat, conventional barbell deadlift. We are beginners, kettlebell deadlift, goblet squat, that kind of stuff. I thought what McGill said again was very practical, very experience-based. And did it frost guess who? The young PT crowd.
Yeah.
Right? Because all of a sudden, he's a fear monger. He's making people not want to exercise. He's telling people not to lift weights. And it's like, no, God, that's not what he's saying at all. And again, if you knew him, if you'd studied him, you would know that. But it was interesting. I listened to one of the podcasts that he did with some guys who disagreed with him. And it was very, very interesting because the guy in the first podcast, the two guys just discussed McGill and what he had said and those things. But it ended up in a situation where the guy said, well, I haven't read his book. And I just thought, that is so crazy to me that you're so offended by somebody that you could do an entire podcast episode on them, yet be able to clearly state that you weren't familiar with his work. Right? I'm not really familiar with his work. I haven't read his books. And you think, so you heard him on a very mainstream podcast with a medical doctor who clearly kind of favors the maximal strength kind of thing. He is a little bit of a meathead kind of guy who's
sure
got some injury problems. And so you start looking and thinking, and then you overreact to what you think you hear. And again, I think if they were better informed, and I would probably say their names if I could remember their names, but I don't really remember their names. So,
But Mike, let me ask you, Peter, you're right, 100%. He is not afraid to talk about trying to lift heavy and maintain that muscle and that strength. He believes, obviously, we know VO2 max, one of the greatest predictors of longevity. Also, he's really talking about the benefits of muscle, right? A muscle centric program and maintaining that muscle. What are your recommendations in terms of the workout piece for somebody like who's your age, right, in the 60s, and somebody's in their late 50s like me, or in their 60s like you, who want to be able to hear something like this and want to be able to maintain muscle? What exactly do you feel? Do you believe that? Do you feel like muscle's important? Or do you just say no,
I
VO2
think
max?
muscle is absolutely important. I always say you can build muscle, or at least maintain strength, or try to increase strength in ways that are more joint friendly and more respective of your skeletal system. I think we take an incredibly narrow view of strength training. And that's why I always feel like I sit in between kind of the Todd Wright, Gary Gray camp and the West Side camp. I think that's where, the Todd Wright, Gary Gray thing is sort of way out on the functional end. And it's a lot of triplanar, a lot of reaching, a lot of kind of getting away from your center, a lot of getting out of the sagittal plane. And then there's the kind of West Side power lifter, meathead, sort of everything bilateral, everything in the sagittal plane. And then I think there's us in the middle, where you're saying, okay, let's think about more dumbbells. Let's think about more unilateral stuff. Let's think about maybe producing forces in the transverse plane, or producing forces and reducing forces in the frontal plane. So I guess I feel like, and I say this all the time, we're the intelligent middle ground. And on one end, I think is also an intelligent, but kind of the far left functional, and maybe, like, in my mind, a little too functional. And then on the other side, there's the sort of conventional, and those are the people who say, oh, it's okay, just you can use the machines, you can do anything. And I'm like, I don't think I want to lean on that side of things. So I guess nobody would ever view me as middle of the road, but I view me as middle of the road.
Yeah, yeah. And I think listening to Lane Norton, some of Lane Norton stuff too, he talks about you can still build muscle with super light weights. You just, obviously the reps have to be, you can go to failure, you can do much higher reps and maintain that muscle. You don't need to lift super heavy. I think I think sometimes it's a personal choice whether, you want to pick up some heavy weight in certain movements and kind of maintain that. But, and Peter's talking about the Centurion Olympics, right? I mean, so, he knows we're going to decline. So whatever your goals are at that point later in life, if you want to carry those 15-pound bags home from the supermarket 1 mile, you better be doing some, picking some heavier stuff up. But that's just, dare I say, case by case.
Oh, please.
All right, we'll let you go.
All right, thanks.
Thanks for doing it. All right, take care.
I'll see you.
The most successful businesses in the world operates by a clear set of core values. And the purpose is not in just having the core values, but it's about how we put them into play to enhance your member experience. Welcome back to Naamly's Maximizing the Member Experience segment, where we delve into the strategies and tactics that elevate your business and helps you foster personalized connections at scale. Let's explore the transformative power of core values in shaping both the client and staff experience today. Together, we'll uncover how these foundational principles can elevate every aspect of your gym. Core values are the heart and soul of your gym's identity. They're not just words on a wall. They guide your decisions, behaviors, and how you interact with members and staff. When clearly defined, they create a unique culture that members want to be part of and staff are proud to support. But how do core values enhance the client experience? Pretty simple. They set the standard for the level of service, care, and community members can expect. For instance, if cultivating community is a core value, every aspect of your gym will be geared towards fostering connections among members, such as through social events or buddy programs. Consider always getting better as another core value. This could translate into continually educating trainers, investing in high quality equipment, or meticulously maintaining your facilities. Members will notice and appreciate the difference, feeling confident they're part of a gym that prioritizes quality in every detail. Now, let's talk about the impact on staff. Core values provide a clear framework for what's expected, creating a cohesive team working towards the same goals. They influence hiring, onboarding, and day to day operations, just how you do things. When staff embody your gym's core values, they're more engaged, they're motivated, and they're likely to provide that exceptional service. So I'm sure you're thinking, how do I create a set of core values that truly resonate and that are mine, that I just don't lift off from some others, but they're mine? Well, more often than not, you got to start with reflection. Consider what principles are non negotiable in the way you run your gym and treat your members. It's okay to look at other core values, other companies, and put them down and see which one of them connects with you and resonates with you and embodies you. Then engage your team in this process. After all, they'll be instrumental in bringing these values to life. And without you knowing it, you probably already have some values that are inherently important to you. Work with them, prioritize the top 3 or 5 and say, this is the tenet that we live by. Be very specific and actionable. Instead of broad said, statements such as, we value fitness, say, we commit to personal growth and excellence in fitness education. And if you can, put down the specifics. For instance, we go to education seminars, we go twice a year, some things like that. Just make it more and more specific. This level of precision guides actions and decisions more effectively, and it also becomes very tangible. And you can now really evaluate if you are coming true on those values. Once you've highlighted your core values, integrate them into everything you do. Highlight them in your marketing, your member onboarding process, staff hiring, and staff training programs. Regularly revisit and assess how well you're living up to these values. It's not a one-time exercise, but an ongoing commitment. In the end, core values are more than just a guiding light. They're a commitment to a certain standard of excellence and culture. They attract members and staff who share those values, creating a powerful community that goes beyond just fitness. All right, then, this is Sumit Seth, co-founder of Naamly. If you enjoyed this segment and are interested in getting more insights and resources on elevating your member experience and setting your business up for success, then go ahead and click the link on this page. Thank you.
All right, that's going to do it for episode 379 of the Strength Coach Podcast. Guys, the show notes are located at strengthcoachpodcast.com. Don't forget, you can try both strengthcoach.com or mbsc.tv out for 7 days for free. Go to strengthcoach.com or mbsc.tv to check out those offers. Special thanks to Chris Poirier and the folks over at Perform Better. Remember, the first functional training summit starts in Orlando, May 30th to June 1st. You got Chicago in June 27th to the 29th. LA is August 1st to the 3rd. Providence is the 22nd to the 24th. Check it all out at performbetter.com. Thanks to Coach Boyle for sharing his insights and philosophies into the world of strength conditioning and performance enhancement. Thanks to Sumit Seth and Naamly, helping build relationships through personalized communication so your members stay longer and pay longer. Check out the show notes at strengthcoachpodcast.com for Naamly's free business boost bundle. You get 3 gifts, a checklist, 51 ways to acquire clients without running ads. You get a cheat sheet, 12 places to look to hire star trainers, and a guide, 9 secrets to increase retention. That's going to do it for this episode. My name's Anthony Renna. Thanks for listening, and I'll speak to you next time.